And we're looking at the international press this Thursday. James Creedon even has all the details.
Good morning, Hannah. So we'll start off with the Wall Street Journal, and on the front page they've got Nicolas Sarkozy in 3 different shots, holding various amounts of fingers up for the cameras, looking very animated, and that was yesterday at the Elysee Palace for the annual ambassadors meeting. So he spoke about his agenda for the G20 summit, which is upcoming in France, about how the 20 largest economies need to reform the global exchange rates. We'll be seeing more about that in business just after the press review, but for now we'll have a look at what they're saying inside, a certain amount of analysis. A crusade to protect the baguette is one way that they have interpreted his speech yesterday. They say, fighting low popularity at home, Mr. Sarkozy is resorting to what many see as populist pronouncements. So they mentioned the dismantlement, or the bulldozing as they put it, of Roma encampments, which has been making headlines the world over. Now he's once again mooting the idea of a tax on financial transactions. So this gets quite technical, but what they're saying here is he may well see a crusade to protect the euro and the price of the baguette as further moves to endear him to voters. So they're being quite cynical. They're saying that these policies that Sarkozy is proposing for international monetary reform are simply sort of moves to endear him to voters, which I think is
using
probably
the international stage to kind of win the battle at home.
Exactly. Now, while I think that might well be a positive side effect, I do think that all of these proposals that he's outlining are genuine proposals that France as a state, not just Mr. Sarkozy as a politician or as a president, wants to see brought in. So I think that's a simplistic view of things in the Wall Street Journal. We'll move on to the Chilean paper La Tercera. Now, this is yesterday's headline because of the time difference. We don't have today's. Miners have lost almost 10 kilos in weight, and they're working to free themselves in 36 degrees of heat. That's their main headline, and they've a photo there of some of the provisions being sent down to them. Just shocking stuff, it has to be said.
And apparently they actually have to keep the weight off, because the thinner the miners are, the more quickly they can be pulled out of the tunnel.
Well, I suppose what are you going to do in a tiny kind of space like that for 4 months? Except for maybe eat and sit. But they have been advised to exercise from what I've heard.
They have to keep a regime just to keep their sanity, I think.
Well, I saw one headline in the press this morning: trapped miners told to exercise, which almost seems sadistic as a headline. But that's it, as you say, they have to keep slim if they're to be able to squeeze out. So in USA Today, they have a headline on that as well, and they're talking about antidepressants being sent down to them, perhaps books, and also one piece of advice that they've been given very early on is to dig latrines. I suppose if you're going to be stuck down there for 4 months, you have to make provisions for all eventualities. And absolutely, and family members have also been instructed not to mention any timeline in the letters that they're sending down to them. I suppose if they mention the fact that they might be stuck down there for 4 months, it could upset them. But actually, if we have a look now at the Christian Science Monitor, they're talking about NASA having received a request from the Chilean government on advice on how to deal with isolation, because actually astronauts are trained on how to deal with isolation when they're sent up to the International Space Station for long periods of time. But in that article, they say that they don't want to give them false hope in terms of how long they're going to be, how long they're going to be, how long it'll take to release them. So there seems to be contradictory messages on how to approach the timeline, whether to kind of tell them they'll be released soon or not give them any hope at all. In any case, awful stuff. And just quickly, La Croix, which is a French Catholic paper, they're talking on the front page about how this story actually gives us hope, despite all of the sadness involved. One of the miners has apparently imposed himself as the leader. He's showing courage, authority, solidarity, and hope for all. Now, 2 quick stories to quickly finish with Gawker. You've got Putin, who has reached the limits of badassery, as they say, in harpooning a whale. Putin must now travel back in time and kill a T-Rex using nothing but an electronic toothbrush.
And this is, of course, because he's a judo expert, which everybody loves to talk about.
Right. So this was his latest stunt in harpooning a whale, showing what a strong man he is. Now, we'll finish with The Independent, and there's a new fashion trend, I suppose, as sported by Beckham and P. Diddy,
He's
of wearing...
always the leader when it comes to these kind of things.
Yeah, but this is kind of surprising. He's wearing sandals and flip-flops.
I thought that was a no-no.
Socks and sandals. Well, apparently, according to The Independent, this isn't such a new phenomenon. I mean, they say that it's best embodied by off-duty geography teachers and embarrassing dads. But now they're saying that Roman colonists, the Romans, when they came to Britain, it was so freezing that they added socks to their traditional attire of just sandals. So there's excavations in North Yorkshire, and they've seen on the rust on a nail of a Roman shoe, which has impressions of fibres, which means they wore socks and sandals. And they even have a letter, and the letter in Latin says, pario udonum ab satua solerum duo e subligorium duo, which means, could you send me 2 pairs of socks, 2 pairs of sandals, and some underpants, please?
Mom.
So that was a letter that they were sending home from Britain to their families.
Wow. So impressive.
The Romans weren't so stylish after all. Okay. Not in Britain anyway.
All right, James, thank you very much indeed. That was a look at today's In the Papers.
You were watching In the Papers, presented by Pullman Hotels.